Starting next week, I'll be living with my mom. Taking care of her is on you. If you defy me, you won't be able to make it, so listen up. Curious to see how you'll manage without me. Well, we're practically strangers now, aren't we? My name is Nancy. I've been married for 8 years. I work from home and handle all the household chores. I'd really like to share household responsibilities since we both work, but because I work from home, my husband insists on me handling everything. So, I have no choice but to do it all. My husband's salary is only $3,500 a month, and he contributes just $500 to our household expenses. So, I've been covering the shortfall with my earnings. Honestly, I earn more than my husband, around $6,000 a month. But because my husband racks up so much credit card bill, we're always just scraping by. Hey, there's hair on the floor. Did you clean properly? This was the first thing my husband said as he entered the dining room, yawning on a weekend morning. He never helps around the house, but if there's even a speck of dust or a wrinkle in the laundry, he's quick to complain. This shirt, can't you iron it a bit better? You got the time, don't you? I looked up from preparing breakfast to see my husband pointing at his shirt with a disgruntled expression. I work too, you know. It wouldn't hurt for you to help me out. Even just ironing your own clothes. You expect me, a man, to do that? Don't make me laugh. Isn't that a woman's job? What's the point of being married if you have to work and do all the housework? I stopped what I was doing, shocked by his unreasonable statement. What do you think I am? A maid? Sounds like you think that's the only reason we got married. A maid might be better. At least they'd do the housework properly and not talk back. That's just mean. I'm doing my best amidst my busy schedule, so I'd appreciate it if you didn't complain. Can't you at least think about helping? We tried talking things through multiple times, but he always brushed it off and is like, I'm way busier than you. He's also fussy about meals. If he doesn't like something, he'll leave it. Sometimes he even demands I make it again. Our food costs kept increasing because I couldn't save much. Hey, this dinner's pretty lazy, isn't it? Well, what can I do? We need to save money to get by. Do you even understand our financial situation? That's just your incompetence. Who do you think allows you to have food on the table? Who do you think keeps this household afloat? You've been pretty sassy lately. Maybe you need to rethink your place. I'm not being sassy. I'm stating facts. I'd love to prepare more elaborate meals, but considering our budget, I can only make budget-friendly dishes. This is how it always is. My husband always talks down to me. My husband thinks we're living comfortably because of him, but his salary is only about $3,500 a month. Moreover, he only gives me $500 for living expenses. The rest he spends as his pocket money. We live in a rented apartment, with a monthly rent of $2,000. Already, the living expenses aren't enough, so I cover the deficit with my saving. I've tried explaining this situation to him, but he doesn't believe me, thinking I'm lying just to have the upper hand. On weekends, he just lounges around at home or goes out with his colleagues. The times when we went out as a couple or had fun conversations were almost non-existent. Still, I worked hard to earn the living expenses, hoping we might one day go on a trip to mend our relationship. It's often said that financial ease brings peace of mind, and I kept telling myself we needed that peace. Not only that, but Tom frequently requests cash advance on his credit card, and I have to cover those payments every month, constantly straining our finances. Hey, I've asked you multiple times not to use cash advances. There are times when the monthly bill exceeds $3,000. We won't be able to make ends meet. That's because you don't get how the world works, Nancy. I'm busy with business dinners. Thanks to those, I get my current salary, and you can live the life you have. It's all for work. How many times do I have to say it? I wonder if maybe the money he spends on these dinners might be more than his actual salary. Don't you have your own salary? Besides what you give to the house. Isn't that enough? He was like that amount? Hardly enough. If anything, I wish I had more pocket money. If you worked a bit harder, Nancy, we wouldn't have to worry about all this, and clearly not willing to listen. I've tried confronting him more assertively in the past, but it just leads to arguments without resolution, so I've come to give up myself to the situation. Once, the credit card bill exceeded $3,500. Shocked, I closely examined the details. Most of it was cash advances, but I noticed the same name of a nightclub appearing multiple times. Upon researching, I found out it was a nightclub in the downtown, and he seemed to be a regular there. Hey, does entertaining clients always have to be at a club? I asked my husband while he was having dinner after coming home from work. Upon hearing the question, my visibly flustered husband began to cough. Hey! Why'd you bring that up out of the blue? What are you even talking about? He tried to play dumb, but his evasive eyes gave him away. I checked the credit card statement. You've been going to nightclubs, haven't you? That's not for business, is it? When I mentioned the word business, my husband seemed somewhat relieved. Yeah, it's for business dinners. Oh, that place was a nightclub? Had no idea. Seeing my husband's mouth twitch, a woman's intuition kicked in. There's still something he's hiding. Anyway, the credit card bill has gone over $3,500 and I can't afford it, so I think your card might get declined soon. So, please moderate your business dinners, okay? I thought about using this opportunity to claim I couldn't make the payment and cancel my credit card. What? That's problematic. Don't do that, just pay up. No, I can't. Think about our living standard. I can't afford it. My husband desperately insisted I should pay. It seemed his desperation gradually turned into anger. Suddenly, my husband slammed the table. You trying to ruin my job? If I don't entertain clients, we won't get any deals. I struggle in ways you don't see. I know you're working hard. But do we really need to go into debt for whining and dining? Doesn't the company cover that sort of expense? The company ain't that generous. You, with no clue about the real world, shouldn't talk as if you know. With that, my husband dramatically closed the door and went to the bedroom. I could only sigh, continuing my dinner alone. One day, as soon as my husband returned from work, he blurted out to me. We're gonna live with my mother starting next week. You'll be in charge of taking care of her. What? What's this all about? You can't just drop this on me. It's no big deal. You're always home. I have work, so I can't take care of her. Hey, I work too. It's impossible for me to juggle a job, housework, and caregiving. Really? Your job's just some easy task at home with a computer, right? Not like my hectic job. Anyway, I'm counting on you. How are we gonna manage the household expenses with no money? Shut it. All you need is cutting back. We're already cutting back. We're in this situation even with the cuts. Be aware of that. I lost my temper at his unilateral decision and yelled. Seeing me like that, my husband looked surprised. After a moment of silence, he grinned, seemingly having an idea. Oh, if we live in my family home, we won't need to pay rent, right? That'll save money. Yeah. I can also reduce the money I put into the household. Let's make it $300 starting this month. Hearing such an outrageous suggestion, I'm pretty sure my eyes must have been wide open in shock. $300? That's even more impossible. Just because we don't have to pay rent doesn't mean caregiving won't be expensive. Like I said, you can manage that by cutting back. I'm super busy. All the household matters are your responsibility. It's about your mother, right? So you should help too. What does she say about this? My mother is all for it. She said it'd be easier for her if you did all the caregiving. What? Even she said so? Can you at least ask her to contribute her pension to the household, Tom? My mother-in-law and I weren't exactly on the best of terms, and I had been keeping her distance. But my mother-in-law is always like a wife's duty is to take care of her husband and family. Since you married and have a family, you must fulfill that responsibility. I wouldn't put it past her to say something like that. But we need to live together, and if she doesn't contribute even a little to the household expenses, our family is gonna fall apart. What? You trying to go after my mom's pension? Can't believe it. Normally, children take care of their parents. You're all about money, ain't you? It's unbelievable. If we had enough income, I wouldn't be saying this. We're barely getting by with just the two of us. We can't afford to support anyone else. If that's the case, why don't you earn more? And while you're at it, do all the chores and caregiving. Do it all perfectly before you complain to me. If I did that, I'd break down. So what if you did? If you end up in the hospital, we'd get insurance money, right? That's probably the only way you'd be useful in terms of money. Anyway, I'm moving out next week. He stormed off angrily toward the bathroom after saying that. It's just too much. What do you expect me to do? I'd always felt mistreated, but the shock of hearing such words from my husband was overwhelming. That day, I cried and made up my mind. I'm not gonna let him have his way. I'm gonna divorce him. I called my parents the next day. Hearing the situation, my parents were furious and told me to come home immediately. My parents' kind words brought tears to my eyes, and my determination to divorce solidified even more. I told them I'd come back as soon as everything was prepared and hung up. I decided to carry on as usual until I was ready for the divorce, doing everything behind the scenes. After sending my husband off to work as usual, I headed to a certain place and requested a particular service. I asked them to hurry, and they were very understanding and cooperative. Then, I looked something up on the internet. To find a lawyer to assist my divorce. I always thought I would never divorce, but once my mind was made up, it felt surprisingly straightforward. After deciding to divorce, instead of feeling regret, I started looking forward to my life after the divorce. I picked up lawyers' contact and printed the list at home, and hid them where my husband wouldn't find them, waiting for the moving day. As I was preparing dinner, as usual, my husband came home from work and started talking with an unusual expression. Something good happen? You're humming a tune. I hadn't realized until my husband pointed it out, but I was indeed humming without even noticing. With thoughts of divorce constantly on my mind and considering trying out farming with my parents back or maybe going on a family trip when life gets better, I realized I wanted to be away from my husband more than I had thought. Oh, I just found a good deal on meat today. So, I was happy thinking about the savings. I had to deflect so as not to raise his suspicion. You're a simple woman. Getting happy over just some meat. And stop talking like we're broke. Sure enough, my husband replied with a sarcastic remark. Whenever I'm in a good mood, for some reason, my husband gets grouchy. I should have noticed these oddities, but I think I just chose to ignore them. But, knowing that we could be getting a divorce soon made me feel kinder towards my husband. Yeah. Dinner's ready. Here you go. You should have had dinner ready by the time I got home. I come home hungry, you know. My bad. I'll be more mindful next time. Whether there would be a next time or not, I put aside. Oh, we're moving next week. Arrange the movers. Throw out what we don't need and pack only the essentials. Our appliances are newer than the ones at my parents' place, so we're taking them. Got it? Understood. Decluttering is important. I'll discard the unnecessary stuff. And I'll have the movers take care of the appliances, don't worry. I was gonna stay true to these words. With that in mind, I could respond with a smile even to the words that usually upset me. And then, on moving day. Make sure you handle the move properly today. Be respectful towards my mother. I'll come back after work to check if you've done it right. Pointing at me, he said this and left the house. I wanted to ask what he meant by being respectful towards my mother, but I held my tongue. If he was gonna return after work, it'd be just fine. As planned, I asked the movers to proceed with the moving tasks. Professionals were indeed quick, and in no time, the house was empty. Standing in front of the echoey house made me feel a bit lonely. As I was leaving, I was like, thank you for everything, and headed to my parents' home in my car. I didn't forget to leave the lawyer's contact on the entryway shelf. That evening, as expected, I had a barrage of missed calls from my husband. But I was busy unpacking at my parents' place and didn't answer. When I checked my phone later, I saw 50 missed calls, some of which were from my mother-in-law, which sent shivers down my spine. Just as I thought this, another call came in, and I answered. Hello? It ain't just hello. What the heck did you do? Are you kidding me? My husband was livid. His shouting was so loud that I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. I'm not kidding. I did exactly as you told me and got rid of what we didn't need. So, let's get divorced. You think I'm dispensable? If we divorce, you're the one who's gonna be in trouble, not me. You can't even fend for yourself, yet you act all high and mighty. Get back here right now. Well, I can manage just fine on my own, so don't you worry. And guess what? I'm already back at my parents' house. So, let's proceed with the divorce process. What? You're at your folks'? Aren't your parents getting on in years? Planning to support them now? With what? Your measly money? Always nagging about money, and now you'll just be even poorer. That's why I ain't gonna divorce you. Apologize now, and I might take you back. Actually, do you even know what my parents do for a living? I'm not sure about the specifics, but I'd wager they earn 10 times what you do. But I don't plan to depend on them. My income is more than sufficient. In fact, I earn almost twice as much as you. What? 10 times? That's ridiculous. And there's no way you earn that much. You don't have to believe me. But I'm not coming back, and I'm not changing my mind about the divorce. So let's move on. Goodbye. Hey! Wait! Listen to me. He continued to shout, but I promptly hung up on him. My parents, who had been listening with stern faces during the call, smiled and were like, "You did well," once I hung up. He kept calling back, spewing the same nonsense, until eventually, my mother-in-law chimed in and was like, "Come take care of me." So I decided to ignore them for a while. Next, I went on to cancel a credit card. Interestingly, the card my husband had been using was a family card under my name. Turns out, my husband had missed several payments before, and was unable to get a credit card under his own name. Even though he needed it for work, I deeply regretted letting him use my card. Without hesitation, I called the credit card company to cancel it. Now, he wouldn't be able to use it anymore. Upon realizing this, my husband showed up at my parents' house. The door was knocked incessantly, making it pretty clear to my parents and I that my husband had arrived. My father was the first to greet him. My husband looked a bit startled to see my father, but started to complain right away. "Please call Nancy. I need to talk to her. I've heard enough. Did you agree the divorce?" My husband stuttered for a moment. But his anger flared up quickly and he was like, "There's no way we're getting a divorce. I'm being told about the divorce out of the blue, and I don't even know what's going on. All of this is Nancy's fault. You, as her father, should be lecturing Nancy." Hearing my husband's words, it seemed like my father's patience had finally run out, and for the first time in a long while, we heard him raise his voice in anger. "Enough is enough. Blaming everything on Nancy. Don't you understand your own words and actions? Speaking as Nancy's father, you're a failure as a husband. Stay away from Nancy." For the first time, my husband saw my father's anger and he was visibly shaken, at a loss for words. That was when I stepped out. "Listen, Tom. Let's put an end to this. Can you please agree our divorce? Aren't you supposed to be taking care of your mother? Better get going." Seeing me, my husband's face turned red with anger again. "Nancy! How dare you say that? It was you who canceled the credit card, wasn't it? Because of that, I can't work. You better fix this immediately." I did restore it. After all, it was my credit card. It's only natural since we're getting divorced, right? And I didn't just freeze it, I closed the account. So, I can't restore it anymore. Why don't you get one for yourself? If you can, that is. You closed it. Acting all high and mighty. Who do you think has been supporting our lifestyle? Are you gonna repay my kindness with betrayal? I've been supporting you. At this point, I was utterly shocked by his complete lack of understanding of the situation. The same lines, time and time again. I started to feel sorry for him, thinking he'd never change. That's when my mother stepped in. "Look, Tom, I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at. Who's been supporting whom? Doesn't that apply to you as well?" My mother calmly tilted her head, asking Tom the question. Suddenly faced with a calm presence, Tom seemed a bit more composed. "What do you mean?" "I've been supporting Nancy. In fact, I've been the one working to make ends meet. So, I don't think I'm wrong here." Hearing Tom's words, my mother sighed and responded. "Well then, who was taking care of the house while you worked?" Cooking, shopping, doing laundry, and cleaning? Are you saying you did all of that too? No, but that's what someone who's being supported is supposed to do. If she didn't, what would be my role? It sounds like you could do all that by yourself then. Listening to you, it seems like you don't understand Nancy's value. Marriage isn't just about dividing tasks. It's about supporting each other. Seems like you got the wrong idea. My husband was at a loss for words at my mother's calm reasoning. But he didn't seem convinced, rather he seemed to be searching for words to defend himself. But we did support each other, right? Nancy, didn't we? Looking troubled, Tom turned to me for support. I was extremely uncomfortable. It wasn't mutual support. You were using me, weren't you? As a maid for housework and a cash cow. Isn't that how you saw me? Pushing him away with my words, he gritted his teeth in frustration and left, shouting that he wouldn't divorce me. My father looked like he still had things to say, his face contorted with frustration, but my mother just chuckled and was like, "What a terrible exit line, huh?" A few days after the incident at our house, I received a call from a company I had contacted to prepare for the divorce. I had hired a private investigator to look into my husband's affairs. They called to report the results of their investigation, and I quickly arranged to visit the firm the next day. The next day, I found out from the results that my husband was deep in the wrong. Turns out he was involved with 3 other women. The business dinners he often mentioned were actually lies to cover up meetings with these women. For a while after the investigation started, he'd been seen going to hotels and dining with one of the 3 women, but that seemed to have decreased significantly recently. When I mentioned the incident with the credit card, the investigator laughed and was like, "So basically, you're saying he couldn't cheat anymore because he ran out of money to use, huh?" I guess that's probably the case. But they had gathered enough evidence for me. With all this proof, I was told I could smoothly proceed with the divorce. They were like, "If you're looking for a lawyer, you might want to contact this law firm," and even introducing me to a lawyer. So, I quickly reached out to that law firm. It seemed they and the lawyer knew each other, and when I mentioned the investigator's name, the lawyer gladly took my case. I quickly went to meet with the lawyer, and given that all the evidence was in order, we were set to prepare for the divorce immediately. I was told to refrain from direct contact with Tom since the lawyer would act as my representative. I conveyed that I wouldn't want to reach out anyway. The lawyer chuckled and was like, "Well, that won't be an issue then." After some time, I guess he received the formal notice because I started getting a barrage of calls, but I didn't answer any of them due to my agreement with the lawyer. However, later, the lawyer contacted me and was like, "Tom wishes to have a discussion with both of us present." Of course, you can decline, but what do you think? Wanting to resolve things quickly, I agreed to the meeting under the condition that my lawyer would be present. On the appointed day, my lawyer and I met with Tom and his mother at the law firm. I was like, "Why his mother is here?" It seems my husband wanted to bring her together. "We're here to discuss, as stated in the notice, your divorce process and Tom's affair. Let's hear your side." "Well, I haven't cheated. This is all a misunderstanding. She probably fabricated all this because she wanted attention. It's really uncomfortable that you're involving an unrelated lawyer. I'm so annoyed, I'd almost like to sue for defamation." "Yeah, that's right. There's no way my son would cheat. She's such a nuisance. And she even wants a divorce? After saying she'd live with us and even take care of me? This is ridiculous." Both of them seemed quite outraged. The lawyer and I were just exasperated. "Do you think we sent the formal notice without any evidence?" With that, the lawyer showed them the evidence gathered by the investigation. My husband went pale as he saw it. "Firstly, you've been seeing this woman for about a year. We've also taken a statement from her." Seeing the photos of him entering a motel with a woman, his mother's hands began to tremble. "Wait, that's not you, right? It must be someone who looks like you. And the woman who gave the statement is probably in on this too. This is unfair." Tom just looked down without responding. "Next, you've been involved with this woman for about 6 months. We've got a statement from her as well, and she has admitted to the relationship. Lastly, you've been seeing this 3rd woman for about 2 months. We have her testimony too." Both Tom and his mother were visibly shaken. "This is fake. I don't know any of them." Tom mumbled quietly while looking down. It seemed like he was starting to break out in a cold sweat. Why are you so clearly in those pictures? You were hugging and holding hands. By the way, why do you think all these women testified against you? Tom, you understand, right? When the lawyer said this, Tom's face briefly turned pale, but then he lowered his gaze and remained silent. Come on, if you know something, say it. Get a grip. Today is about making Nancy apologize and come back. His mother shook him while saying this, but my husband didn't say anything. Of course, he wouldn't. Tom, you were hiding the fact that you're married from all these women, right? They didn't know you were married, and they asked about the certified mail. I explained the situation properly to them. Tom then raised his head and started to speak with a wry smile. All right, I understand. I'll accept the divorce. Is that okay? My income has decreased now, and I can't afford to pay my living cost, so can you do something with it? Will that settle things? What are you talking about? There's no way we can agree to that. What about my caregiving? Shut up. Just be quiet. Tom finally erupted into a quarrel with his mother right in front of us. What will you do? The lawyer turned to me for my opinion since it seemed like they needed it. I have no intention of changing my mind. We're getting a divorce, and I don't know anything about your income situation. I said, speaking up for the first time. Both Tom and his mother stared at me in surprise. It's mostly your fault anyway. Why can't you just obediently do as I say, he yelled. That's right. You're the one who married once, so it's only right for you to take care of us. I decided to have the final say on this self-centered matter. Tom, you might be reported by the other women besides me. After all, you proposed to all of them and even borrowed money. Oh, by the way, congratulations. It seems like you're going to have a child next year. I don't know if you'll get your mother see though. As I said this with a smile, the two who had been so spirited until then were left stunned. So, if there's nothing else to discuss, we'll end it here. Please contact me if anything comes up in the future. In the quiet room, the lawyer concluded the meeting, and I left. The two of them seemed to be enveloped in an atmosphere that was on the verge of sinking. Seeing those two like that, I felt relieved. In the following days, the divorce process started, and eventually the divorce is about to be finalized without any issues. Regarding the division of property, we received confirmation of agreement and it'd be proceeding further. Afterward, my ex-husband's workplace became aware of the rumors about this incident, making his job awkward. He eventually resigned. However, due to the living expenses, caregiving costs he had to pay, he couldn't afford to be unemployed and had to work multiple part-time jobs. Interestingly, the manager at one of his part-time jobs happened to be my friend, but my ex-husband didn't know that. He told the manager the story like he was the tragic hero. But my friend was like, it's all your fault, isn't it? Do you know the concept of karma? After hearing that, my ex-husband became quiet and obedient. So, my ex-husband now lives from his money, trying to make ends meet. When he returned home, unfamiliar caregiving duties awaited, and he couldn't keep up with the housework, turning their home into a mess. Due to reports from the neighbors, the authorities had to intervene, and my mother-in-law ended up in a nursing home. My ex-husband, on the other hand, started missing work due to fatigue and stress. He even had to sell his family home to manage his expenses and payments. This is what I heard from my friend. His whereabouts are unknown after that, but an acquaintance mentioned seeing my ex-husband tossing garbage in the dumpster of a rundown apartment complex, so it seems he's still alive. As for me, the divorce went through smoothly, and I felt an incredible sense of relief. With the source of stress gone, my work is going well, and I received a raise. Since I had inconvenienced my parents during this whole ordeal, I planned a trip with them for next month, and I'm really looking forward to it. My parents manage rental properties, so they're usually at home, and recently, we've been enjoying gardening together, creating a small garden in our backyard. If I could have this happy everyday life, I wish I had divorced sooner. Afterward, a friend introduced me to a wonderful man. He's kind, caring, and values me deeply. He's become close with my parents, and there might even be a remarriage in the near future.